HR professional networks where he is well reputed and he has excellence for content delivery at various leadership forums. This has led to countless awards to his credit. I would say Mr. Yemi is an adept professional with a quest for delivery within managing environments where he excels and where he has leadership and teamwork and where all of these are paramount. He is a keen penchant for delivering proven measurable results. Mr. Yemi's fashions, one of his assignments was being the head of FBN Quest Merchant Bank, an investment subsidiary banking subsidiary of FBN Holdings, whose services are banking and the likes. He's happily married with 3 children. He lives in Lagos, Nigeria, and we are indeed delighted to have you on this call. Mr. Yemi Fashion, I'll hand over this session to you, and I'm sure that you're going to do so much justice to it. You're welcome, sir.
Well, good evening, everyone, or good morning, good afternoon, wherever you're listening from. Thank you for inviting me to the Xnova platform. I sincerely appreciate the opportunity to be a part of this conversation. This conversation has been going on for a while now, and I think for those who have listened to me in the last maybe 2 weeks, or those who have read some of the things that I wrote about the topic, they are familiar a bit with my thoughts around this. But again, it's another opportunity for us to share around the Japa issue. Okay, so what is Japa really? Please confirm that you can hear me, everyone. I just want to be sure you can hear me.
Loud and clear, sir.
Okay, so what really is Japa? I think that's the best way to define this. About 2 or 3 weeks ago, there was a guy who on LinkedIn tried to give, about 4 weeks now, some sort of definition to Japa. So we are exporting our goods and our services, but we are completing that process by exporting ourselves. So Japa is in plain vernacular Yoruba, what Japa just means to run away from something, to take off, to avoid impending disaster, to escape, to flee. So because of the one-way movement of talent out of Africa into the first world, and especially also within Nigeria, given our population, Japa has become an interesting conversation in the last couple of months. Very interesting. We've moved from the Great Resignation to quiet quitting to Japa now. Everybody's just talking about it. And it's a reality. It's our reality. Japa is our reality. I said on another program about 2 days ago that to some of us, Japa might not be new. We are in the era of Japa 4.0. And 4.0 because the wave for Japa forming started maybe when I left secondary school about 40 years ago. And it looks like almost every decade, something happens within the political terrain or in the global and local terrain that just allows talent to look at themselves and say, hey, what else can I do given what is happening within my own environment? And then also is the advent of technology. Technology made it a bit easier for us to look at talents from a globalization perspective. So because of technology, virtualization, and also the millennials who are willing to take risks with their careers, and the new generation as well, we also saw that there was an upward swing in the Japa phenomenon. Add to that is the fact that 2.5 years ago, the pandemic hit, and it wasn't limited to any part of the world. It was a global phenomenon, and because of the things that happened between the arrival of COVID-19 and maybe about 6 months ago, again, the movement of talent from Africa into the first world was escalated. Add to that the aging population of the Western world and the fact that they needed people to fill in the roles, the gaps that were arising out of an aging population scenario, there was only one way to look to attract talent. Again, that's Africa. And they've been throwing many freebies at us. Freebies. Come and do your master's, you get a student visa, and then you get your spouse will get a work permit. When you stay after 2 years or 3 years, you can get a work permit, or you can become a citizen. The PR option for those who have been going to Canada in the last couple of months, those options were available because the West needed the strength of our youth to continue to develop its economy. And that's a sad part of the story for me personally. Honestly, I've been ruining over this for a couple of days now, and it's really not pleasant to think that the scarce financial resources in Africa is exactly what we are using right now to go develop further the developed world. But it is what it is. It's the reality. So it's a number of factors. It's people say the security situation in Nigeria. People who seem to be comfortable are even selling off their assets, and they are jackpotting. I mean, we hear so many bankers now and others in other sectors, not just the younger generation, but the fairly senior, the senior people are also involved in the Japa trade. They've joined the train as well. So it's a combination of all those factors. I think the last thing that I will say as a factor contributing to the Japa train is the impending election in Nigeria. Many people are just not sure what the outlook of Nigeria will be leading to the election and then post-election. People are a bit worried, people are scared. We read the daily security news and reports, and they are not palatable. I must say, that's the reality. Whether within, it's not actually limited to any part of Nigeria, if you ask me. I think it's a general security concern, and people are thinking that, oh, let me go live my life in a saner environment where I wouldn't need to pray and say, oh Lord, I'm going out this morning, please bring me back safely. Some of those things possibly are given in some other parts of the world, and people are thinking, please, let me just go and have a peace of mind. They don't want Nigeria, and I'm putting a straight language now, they don't want Nigeria to happen to them. So the best way to do this is pack our loads and let's go and live in another place where the quality of life is almost assured, so to say. I think I left out one reason, and this is very common, especially within the cadre of the senior people who are on the Japa train. What you hear them say is that they're doing it for the children. I'm just doing this for my kids, because they don't think that there is a future for the young generation, the upcoming generation, as they say, in Nigeria. The opportunities are not there, employment. I mean, when you add all of that to ASU being on strike for over 7 months, and students are home just waiting because of the quagmire between the lecturers association, ASU, and the government. And I mean, it just didn't make sense for many people to say, I'm going to tie the future of my children, of my kids, to this situation called Nigeria. And therefore, it's almost daily on the rise. What we have seen is that organizations are responding. No, organizations are not responding, but they are reacting from a talent management perspective to this Japa issue, where we are leaders, business owners, managers, we are in a state of fear, so to speak. And our reactions are all over the place. That's the reality. I've had conversations with organizations saying, okay, we know we can't stop them from going, but we want to continue to have a relationship with them, even when they're not with us physically. The same organizations that we've been preaching to say, hey, let's look at remote working, let's look at hybrid situation, let's look at work from home and all that, maybe about 3-4 years ago, and they were not listening. The same organizations are saying, oh, okay, our talents are leaving, but we want to continue to have a working relationship with them. We know they're going to school for a master's degree, but we will continue to have a working relationship with them. We'll ask for 20 hours per week of their time or 10 hours per week because they are talents and we don't want them to go. We are beginning to see a lot of that. The way we are reacting is also in the space of reward. It is at the point where individuals say, hey, I'm resigning, that we are thinking, oh, let us promote you. Let us increase your salary. The salary that we didn't increase in the last 2-3 years, maybe the individual has been stylishly telling us, like managers or businesses, to say, this take home isn't taking me home anymore. Maybe they've been saying that in other ways than words, but we're not listening. But all of a sudden we're saying, oh, what can we do to make you stay? We will increase your salary, we will promote you. And then the others who are in the organization, they're looking at the drama and saying, oh, so what it takes to get a salary increase is to resign or to say, I'm leaving or I'm on the Japa train. And then the organization will try and react by saying, no, I should stay. So all of that is happening. What else is happening? We are also in panic mode from a talent management perspective. And when I say panic mode, I mean in terms of getting replacement for individuals who are leaving. Organizations are now willing to pay an arm and a leg to get people into the organization, maybe possibly from competition, right? So we're thinking because talent is scarce, because people are leaving, so the best way to react to the situation, therefore, is to throw money at people. And there's a joke that I cracked sometime last week. What I said was, those we are throwing money at right now, they will gladly take it and come join your organization or our organization. But the point is we are helping them to build up their funds reserve till they are ready to do their own Japa thing as well. And that's the reality. Because what it means is that if the bond or the contract between organization and employees has now been zeroed in on mere remuneration, the truth is we are still looking at that from a short-term perspective rather than a long-term perspective, right? So they're going to come and say, okay, I'll leave my organization and come and join you for a 30, 35, maybe 40% salary increase because, hey, I need the money anyway to build up my proof of funds so that I can get my visa. I mean, remember that the Japa thingy escalated a bit in the last 4 to 5 weeks, and that is because individuals had to go to school to resume in September. But the truth is, there are some who did not get their visas for the September resumption. They've deferred their admission until January. And between now and January, what they're going to do is to try and get reserve of funds so that they can eventually either get their visa or get their admission. So if what we are doing is to throw money at them, they will take the money and then they will say, oh, yeah, sure. So we are promoting in a hurry. We are recruiting in a hurry. We are throwing money at things right now or at people just because we want to win the Talent 4.0 war. A lot of that is happening at the moment. And I personally think that we should move away from the reactionary perspective to the Japa syndrome to manage our talent. We should look at things more fundamentally and respond to the situation. So maybe in a couple of minutes, I'll just give you an idea of what I think we should be doing in terms of responding to the talent management chaos, so to speak, that is currently being created so that we can have a more strategic long-term approach to the situation. Number one, the first thing I think we should do is let's move our focus away from those who are leaving or those who have left. They've left and that's it. That's the reality. They are likely not to come back to us in the next 2 or 3 years. They've left. They've moved on with their life. So let's accept that reality, that Japa reality, that talent challenge reality. We've got to accept it. I'm not sure that the individuals who will fix the situation are the same individuals who are the primary causes of the situation we find ourselves. I mean, these guys have shown us clearly that loyalty is to themselves. And I can't blame nobody. 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago, as many years as possible that I have been speaking on diverse platforms, we have said to them, self-development is key. We have said to them, if you don't wait for the organization to send you on training before you send yourself on training. We have said to them that if you are not in love with self-development, you are cheating on yourself. And they've taken the challenge. They've embarked on its self-development journey in the last couple of years, and now they've become, so to speak, run or sought after talents. And because organizations abandoned that long-term perspective of nurturing development of talents into leadership roles from a long-term perspective, and we left the sole development of talent in talent's hands, what has happened is loyalty therefore moved away from the organizations we worked with to self. People therefore thought, oh, I mean, I have built myself up. The organization did not bother about sending me on training, getting involved in my nurturing or development. I have done all of this for myself, certifications, training, learning on the job, and all of that, putting in extra hours. Maybe the organization will say, oh, I pay you a salary to do a job, do the job, and that's it. And these guys were quietly developing themselves. So the loyalty pendulum has changed its direction from the organization to the individuals, because loyalty will be to, if the organization was involved in my development and nurturing and all that, and I could have a long-term perspective, engagement constantly with my line manager who tells me about the plans the organization has for me and all that, I will still have a psychological bond with the organization through my line manager, through that interaction, through that connection. But we broke the cycle. We broke the cycle of recreating a future. I mean, that's the expression I was looking for. We broke that cycle. A couple of us might cast our minds back to the Unilevers of this world and the banks, so many of them, where on a yearly basis we will get in graduate trainings and management trainings in some instances, the UAC of yesteryears, the first bank of those days, right? People will spend 20-something years or 15 years and they'll say, oh, I became an ED or I became an MD through a graduate trainee program or management associate program and all that. We were spending the money of the present to secure a future for the organization in those years. But something happened along the line. Every organization was looking for ready-made talent. We didn't have time to train anymore, or we didn't have the budget to train anymore. If anyone read my post on LinkedIn on Monday, I said that every time we came to a cost-cutting project, the first department we will go will be what? Human resources. And on the human resources line item or budget item, we go straight to training or learning and development. We first cut it by 50%, straight line. We can't afford to train people. I mean, the training budget, we will have told the HR department to spend time to give us a training budget in November or October. And I was a witness to this in many instances in my prior lives. We would spend time, we would sit down with line managers, we would look at performance appraisals for the entire organization, we would look at the gaps within the workforce, we will come up with a training program for individuals, for teams, for departments, for leaders in the organization, so that we can, like I said, secure the future of the organization into the long term. We will come up with all those plans. And the first quarter of the year, cost cutting, first place to go, HR, first line item to read, learning and development. And we were getting feedback. The workforce was giving us feedback that, hey, you guys are not signing us on training, We're just doing everything. Some were learning by putting in unnecessary hours into their job. But because they had to do the job to guarantee their pay, they were doing it, right? So the organizations abandoned that, I could call it primary duty, primary responsibility of securing its own future by building its workforce, making them ready, and we started looking for ready-made talents. So we would rather than spend that money on nurturing, learning and development and all of that, we'd rather spend that money to get talent at a premium. We're looking for ready-made talents, and there was a common language for as long as I was in paid employment. It was, we are looking for individuals who are going to hit the ground running. We were looking for individuals who are going to take the organization to the next level. And guess what? We were getting those guys in at a premium at the expense of those other people who have been loyalists in the organization. So somebody comes from outside, and there's a joke that it is the manager that you buy at a premium who's going to come do the job, but the individuals that we did not place a premium on will teach those talents how to do the job. So we moved away to premium-based talent search. Let's look for guys who are going to hit the ground running, take the organization to the next level, like I said, at the expense of the current workforce, those who have been slaving it for the organization, who have stood by the organization through thick and thin. I will say again, we'll increase their salaries by 2% or 4%, or we'll give them COLA. But the guys who are going to come out from outside the organization, because some of them could speak well during interviews, or because yes, in actual fact they could do the job, yeah, maybe, but we were spending more money on external recruitment, getting people at a premium into the organization rather than securing the future of the organization by training, nurturing, and developing those already with us. So this happened a long time ago. And if you now link all the 6-7 things that I mentioned leading to Japa, you'll see that for me, this constitutes a very big part of the reasons why people are leaving. So they have now took it upon themselves. They took it upon themselves over the years to go on self-development, and now they've become talents. Do you think they will stay with us? Number one, other companies are looking for them. They have taken it upon themselves to develop themselves to that level. Other organizations are now looking for them. They've also become the brides of the marketplace. So organizations are looking for them at a premium. They've also become the talent that competition is looking for. That's number one. Number two, global opportunities are open to them because of their level of self-development, and what has happened is because there are no longer boundaries to opportunities based on technology and globalization. Some of them are even here in Nigeria. They're not traveling, they're not Japan anywhere, but they're getting jobs. I know somebody who lives in Nigeria and works in Brazil. I'm sure 1 or 2 people listening to me will know 1 or 2 people who are living in Nigeria, but they are working offshore. And there's some other people who are living offshore and they're working in Nigeria as well. Because like I said, the opportunities are bounded. But the point is, organizations from a talent management perspective over the years have abandoned that care of duty or duty of care in terms of nurturing talent. And personally, I think it's coming back to haunt us. Not only from an external Japa perspective, i.e. leave Nigeria, but also the resignation that we are witnessing right now. I mean, just this evening, I was chatting with one of my mentees and said that I want to have a conversation with you. And let me see if I could just pick it up quickly and read that so that we can understand exactly the kind of situation we are in right now. My current boss has trust and power issues. I'm reading directly from HR. She respects and loves me. I literally run a 15-year-old firm, but she has trust and power issues. Now, the problem with this individual is that I just started working where I am now, July 12, 2021. So in effect, this is just 1 year and about 2 or 3 months. And the individual already has another opportunity. So this person is not jackpotting. This is Japa from within, not external to Nigeria. But the point is, opportunities abound. We've got to go back to the basics rather than reacting with knee-jerk approaches to the talent management challenges of today. I think we need to have a more strategic response. Let's go back to the basics. Like I said in the post on LinkedIn, let's do a kind of backtracking. Let's do backward integration. You see, those fundamental things that we lost, or we willingly or unwillingly, we decide to not do them anymore. Those things are haunting us right now. Can we go back to it? Can we go back to developing the workforce? Number one. Those who have left, let's shift our focus away from them. They are not coming back to us. At least they're not coming back in the next couple of years. But not everybody will Japa. Not everybody will leave the organization. Can we now start focusing on what we didn't do a couple of years ago? Let's start doing them differently now. Let's start nurturing talent. That's I think the first thing we should do. Number two is, I think we should go beyond just our workforce in terms of this backward integration. Rather than run after the guys who are leaving or have left, let's come back and say, okay, what do I have? What can I do with what I have? That's number one. Number two is 2 or 3 steps back, again, to say that let us, and I see this from a collaborative point of view, not just one organization, not just one sector, corporate Nigeria. We need to sit at the round table and have a conversation about how we are feeding our pipeline into the workforce. How we are feeding the pipeline into the workforce. We all know that the education system has taken a bashing, definitely. But remember, in those years, that was the idea for the graduate trainee program, or the management associate, or the management trainee program. Those rough edges that were coming out of the university system, what we attempted to do, and this was not a 3-month training in a classroom only. It was a graduate training program of 6 months to 1 year, even after classroom. It was a management trainee or management associate program that spanned about 18 months to 24 months in some organizations. So let us go back. Let us go back to feeding the pipeline with the right sort of quality. So let's not just concentrate on the workforce to secure the future of the organization. Let's also go back to the pipeline that we're feeding from. And I'm saying maybe back to post NYC, maybe back to NYC, maybe back to the classroom. What can we do to make sure that the talent coming out to join the workforce, they are ready for the now of work. They are ready for the workplace, not just from a technical perspective, but also in terms of what they will need to succeed within the workplace. We need to do that. If we don't, we will continue to spend our money in the wrong places. And can I just say, and I'm not trying to be a prophet of doom, the reality is that Japa is not going to go away for a while. I see this still happening in the next 2 to 3 years, until maybe some countries will think, oh, we have filled enough of our quota from Africa, and then let us stop this for a while. But for as long as that door is open for talent to come out of Africa into the first world, the developing world, believe me, Japa is not going to stop. So we need to quickly recalibrate, therefore, and think, what do we need to do, therefore? Like I said, number one, the workforce that is not leaving us. What are we doing about them? Developing them, nurturing them, getting ready for opportunities and all that, rather than still chasing the shadows of those who have left. Why don't we create substance for those who are still with us? Number two, can we do a backward integration in terms of how we are feeding the pipeline into the organization? We can't all just sit and say, oh, the quality of education is dropping, the quality of talent is not up to par. We can't just continue around the rhetorics. We've got to come to a point where we'll say, okay, what's the solution, or what are the solutions? And remember what I said, this will take some sort of collaboration. I don't see an organization or a sector taking this head on and succeeding. I think corporate Nigeria needs to come together to say, guys, we need to have a way out of this. We also need to move away, or we need to shift our thinking around talent retention. We need to rethink retention. And one of the things I've said in recent past is to say that at the point where the individual comes to say, I am resigning, if we try to say, oh, what can we do to make you stay? What's your offer? We'll give you a counter offer, or we'll give you a promotion. At that point, believe me, it's too late. But if the individual needs your money so that they can still save up more funds for their eventual Japa, it's just postponing the evil day. Let's not wait until employees come to say they're leaving the organization before we start having engagement and connection with them. Before we start doing what I call what has been called the stay interview rather than the exit interview. Before they came to the point of dropping their letter of resignation with us, they've thought through that process like 1 year ago, some instances like 2 years ago, planning for that moment. So the day they come to say, oh, I'm resigning, with a letter of resignation or an email or a text message, or possibly just ghost on us, that is not the day of resignation. The day of resignation was a day we didn't give them a feedback on their performance appraisal. The day of resignation was a day they wanted to talk to us, to just have a chat about their work, about how they're doing, and we were not available for them. We were ghosting on them as leaders and managers in the organization. We were ghosting them at that time. They wanted to have purpose and meaning to what they do. They wanted to find themselves within the scheme of the organizational structure, but we didn't give them that airtime. We were ghosting them. That was a year ago. That was 8 months ago. And then they started thinking, what are my options? What do I need to do? Options include other organizations, or options include Japa out of Nigeria. And then they started the process. And you see, when the mind is made up in a particular direction, you'll be amazed at the opportunities that will start appearing to the individual whose mind is made up. And then they start looking at those options and they say, oh, okay, I can actually get a master's degree at £14,000. And then, yeah, if I'm single, that's fine. I mean, just me, and I'll leave. Oh, I'm married, the kids. Some countries will say, come, we'll give you a work permit for your spouse and school permit for your kids. And they're like, oh, okay, not that bad. And then they start planning. They started planning months ago. The date they resigned was not the date they resigned. So what do we therefore need to do? In addition to focusing on the current workforce by nurturing, developing, and using them, therefore, as the basis to secure the future, of the organization. In addition to all of that, let's also connect with them with the right leadership competencies. I have no reservations, absolutely, by saying that corporate leaders in Nigeria are part of the reasons why we have more people daily joining the Japa train. I promise you. Because they try one leader and they're like, no, I'm going to another organization. And they try another and the environment is toxic or leadership is just not the right one. And then they are thinking, I mean, I've tried 1, 2, 3. This country is just not working for me. I'm leaving. So what sort of leadership competencies are we giving them? No. What sort of leadership experiences, rather, are we giving them on a daily basis to the point where there continues to be a psychological bond and contract with the organization? People have choices. Organizations must know that. Managers must know that. Leaders must know that. In today's world, the choices are not bounded by physical distances anymore. Not at all. The opportunities for talent are many. We've got to realize that. And we've got to treat them with the right and give them the right employee experience on a daily basis. Perhaps, if we do that, nurture them, grow them, developing them for the future. And number two, leaders in the organization wake up to the new realities of how to manage people. Perhaps we will have them with us for another 1 year, or maybe for another 2 years. That's the reality. Or maybe we can extend it beyond that. But to the extent that they are on a Sunday evening thinking about work on a Monday morning with palpitations because of the kind of boss they're going to go work with, because of the experience they're going to have in the organization, they will always evaluate their options from time to time. So I have mentioned, number one, stop focusing on those who have left or those who are leaving. Let's stop the focus on them. Let's stop reacting with knee-jerk approaches to the talent management challenges. Number three, let's focus on the current workforce. By now, let's do the things we abandoned years ago, which was to nurture, to train, to get them ready. The ready-made talents that we're looking for are also looking for ready-made economies, ready-made markets, ready-made world. And that world is enticing them and giving them freebies to join. The guys who are still with us, let us give them some attention. I think that's what I'm looking for as well. Let us give them some attention. Let's concentrate on them. And the best way to concentrate on them is to engage. We can't over-engage in the current dispensation. And I'm not saying MD must engage every day. I'm not saying the EDs must engage. Anytime I have used in this conversation or in all my conversations, anytime I've used the word leadership or leaders, I am appealing to everyone who has a responsibility for 1, for 2, for 3, or for 5, or for the organization. All of us in that supervisory responsibilities are leaders. And we must get the new leadership competencies right. Otherwise, we will just go running around in circles. That's the reality. We will bring them in and pay them more. They will spend 6 months with us. But if the leadership experience isn't great, they will move to another organization because the options are many. Don't get me wrong. I'm not advocating or encouraging that people must move or must leave at the drop of a pin, but that is our reality. That is the truth right now. Some will even prefer to be at home. I mean, this is the gig economy, and guys can be at home and make money. That's a fact. For as long as they have built skills ready for the current dispensation, they would rather stay at home and look for opportunities within the gig economy rather than go to work. Number one, commute on 3rd Mainland Beach for 2-3 hours in the morning, commute back 2-3 hours in the evening, and then between the 8 or 9 to 5 or 6 of an everyday life, they don't get the best out of that relationship with the organization through their line managers. And they come to tell us that it's affecting their mental health. We say to them that, oh, you guys are not resilient. But the fact is, what resilience meant to the older generation is not the same thing to the current generation. We've got to accept that reality. So the more we do of engagement as leaders, the more we understand what is meaning to them, what keeps them sane within our own environment. See, we need to move away as leaders and managers of people and as owners of businesses from, I pay them a salary, they should do the job. Today's psychological contract between the employee and the employer has gone beyond, I pay a salary and you do a job. It's gone beyond that totally. It's almost like all encompassing now. I mean, the pandemic happened to us in the last 2.5 years has shown us that empathy is critical, very, very critical in terms of human relationship in the current dispensation. Generally, in terms of general human relationship, empathy is important. Therefore, if we spend 8 hours or 9 hours in a particular location on a daily basis, and we don't feel that we belong to that environment, we don't feel that there's a connection between those who manage and lead us and ourselves, We don't feel that there is meaning and purpose to the things that we are doing on a daily basis. We don't feel psychologically safe in that environment. We will, as talents, weigh and consider our options. And Japa is a credible option at the moment. It is available to everyone. Forget the fact that, yes, I know that everyone will not, but the point is the opportunities are there. I mean, I saw some data and statistics showing those who left about June last year to UK, US, and Canada. I think it was about 6,000, but those who have left this year, about 30 or 40,000 people. So data is suggesting clearly that we are in for this for a long time. But what do we need to do to stem the tide? And some of the things that I am proposing right now will not stem the tide in the immediate term. I am raising my hand to say this clearly now. Some of the things that we are talking about, the conversation we're having right now in terms of initiatives and all that, they're not things that will yield us immediate results. Let me just be clear about that. But the truth is, the earlier we start, the better, so that we can now start reaping the benefits of it. At least let us start. At least let us start to engage. Let us start to lead right. This afternoon, I think I put up on my status where I said that leading with kindness is not expensive. Leading with kindness is, and I was looking at that statement as I was thinking about it from an empathy perspective. Leading with kindness is not expensive, but the returns are immense. And the returns are into the long term. For individual employers, for individual leaders and managers in the organization, and for the organization as a whole, the returns are immense into the long term. So let us go back to those basics of nurturing the workforce, of developing them, of growing them, of going back one or two steps to start feeding the right quality into the pipeline. And then probably the last thing I'll say on this, the way to start looking at retention now is not to look at people spending 3 or 5 years with us. Years ago, spending, I remember that we had in many instances policies on long service award. So people have spent 15 years, wristwatches maybe, 10 years, fridge freezer, maybe 5 years. And we said to ourselves that, 5 years would be the minimum for anybody to enjoy the benefits. In some instances, that also fed into the gratuity schemes and the payout. You need to have spent a minimum of maybe 3 or 5 years and all that. But the reality right now is that long-term service award, maybe if you get somebody staying with you for 3 years, we should start looking at that individual as a long-term or a loyal employee. That's the current reality on ground. But the point is, we need to start rethinking around retention. Maybe what we need to do is not retention. And all that I have said can be encapsulated in what I call talent contribution. Our focus from a talent management perspective should start moving towards talent contribution. And this is what I mean. We have local pools of talent and we have global pools of talent. Right now, there are the push and pull factors taking talents away from us. Pull will be other economies inviting our younger ones or talents from Nigeria or from Africa. They are being pulled into other opportunities and possibilities. We also have the push factors, in which case we are looking at employee experience in our organizations that sucks. We are looking at culture that is toxic. We are looking at leadership that is not ideal, and we are pushing people away into the Japa world, so to speak. But if we look at both and we can address the pull and the push factor, especially the push factors from a talent contribution perspective, perhaps even if we don't stop the Japa train, even if we don't stop it, what we can do is that, and again, this is a collective responsibility. I'm not looking at just few organizations doing this. I'm looking at, like I said, collaboration on a very large scale to say that let's rethink retention and let's come to the table of talent contribution. No matter how many months or years they spend with us, let us give them the best employee experience. Let them look forward to coming to work on a daily basis. Let talents be psychologically connected to the organization from day one till the last day. Let that be let them be not just employees, but brand loyalists to the organization for as long as they are with us. One of the things I put up on my status this morning also was to say that the best advertisement, the best ad any organization can have is how leadership treats the employees. That's the best ad in today's world. I have seen many instances this year, many. And when I say many, I mean many, because I speak to people a lot from a career perspective. I have seen many people offered employment in other organizations. They were not in a hurry to sign anything. What they did was to do a research on leadership, experience, reward, culture of those organizations by speaking with ex-employees. On one of my platforms, the YF Academy, we had a guy who said, "Hey guys, please rejoice with me. Finally, I think I have found another job." And we're like, "Oh, finally," because we're all aware the guy was trying to move. And we're like, "Oh, finally," and all that. And then 2-3 days later, the guy comes back to the platform and say, "Hey, maybe not. Because I did some research and I found out that if I go into that organization, I'll be moving from fry pan to fire." Money was good. I promise you guys, money was very good. But the individual declined that offer based on feedback on leadership and culture. So what sort of contribution will that particular organization have made into the local talent pool or the global talent pool? If you don't give quality as an organization now, as an employer, as a leader, as a manager, if you don't give out great quality into the local and global talent pool, you do not retain any right to want to take quality talent from local or global pool. If we rethink retention from that perspective and say that whatever number of years employees stay with this organization, we will give them the best, so that even when they leave, they will not be ex-employees, they will become loyalists and ambassadors of the brands. Some organizations are very strong from an alumni perspective. KPMG as an example, former Arthur, and that is because employees had great experiences, good line manager-employee relationship over the course of their career. They moved on and they retained their relationship with the organization. And when they move on, they become a part of a strong alumni. So what are we doing as organizations to retain the bond that exists between ourselves and ex-employees? If you speak with some ex-employees and say, "Oh, I'm trying," not even ex-employees, if you speak with some employees who are working in an organization and say, "Hey, I'm talking to your organization and I have an interview, the final interview, what do you think?" Some of them will just shake their head and say, if you love yourself, don't come to my company." That's the reality we are facing. It's the Sorosuke generation. They don't see anything wrong in passing out information, right? The loyalty, like I said, is to self and not to any organization. So let's move away from trying to see how we can stem the tide of Japa by focusing on those who have left. Rather, let's come back to see what we can do with the current workforce that we still have. I call them our captive audience. What can we do with the captive audience that we still have so that ultimately, right, we can have a better understanding of talent contribution to the pool? And when people leave our organization and we want to recruit or attract people, we can go to the same pool because everybody is contributing great talents into that pool. That would be a better way to rethink retention from the Japa issue that we have right now. Thank you very much. If there are questions, I'll take them at this point. Thanks a lot. Any questions?
I'm trying to unmute my mic. Thank you very much, Mr. Yemi.
Thank you very much.
I like the way you dissected a lot of cogent points that even though we pay attention to it on the daily, but then it can never be overemphasized, honestly speaking. I believe that there are some people on this call who have learned a lot from what you've said, and they picked one or two lessons. I'm talking about from line managers to participants, basically. And I believe everyone can hear me. So if we have questions, I think we have a few minutes to take questions and answers, question and answer time, basically. So you might do so by waving so that your questions can be treated. Please indicate by waving your hands. I'm not sure I can see any reaction here, but please, can you see any?
Yes, I see Demola Obasan Kayode. His hand is raised.
His hand is raised.
And then Amaka Obera as well.
Okay.
So can we have Demola first? Demola Kayode, Demola Obasan. Please go ahead, Kayode.
What else? Thank you for the session. I've just been late, but I was able to take it in. It was my boss who actually recommended session for me. Was not available. Now I want to ask for HR assistant like me. I work directly with you. How do we come in? Because we don't really have much of a say. We're not the ones that have the management. We're not the ones that interface with the board. So how do we, the HR assistant, work with HR basically? How can we help to send the title of that part here? Now, in my organization, we had 17 staff that resigned. And I just from staff. So I think we had like 12 that resigned. We had to let go of 5. But we had 12. Just in the first quarter alone, we had 6. In the first quarter, we had just 2. Second quarter and third quarter, we had about, I think we had, both in total, we had 12 that resigned. And out of that 12, those that left the country, we had 7. One will be leaving, one just resigned. One of our oldest, our 6-year-old, and you make the point that a lot of people that resign, just start to resign immediately. They are thinking about it. You need that just resign, that will be resigned, that will be able to, she don't do the stuff in the bank. That's why she has been the bank. One of these delays was one of our director. For those reasons.
Okay, so
how do we, we have much in terms of decision making? How do we communicate our ideas to our bosses that would be some kind of
okay, thank you, Kayode. If I get your question right, what you're saying is that the Japa syndrome is impacting you as well in your place of work, resignations left, right, and center. How can you, as an HR assistant, help or communicate in such a way that you can assist the organization to stop or reduce the level of resignation right now? And sincerely, and if you listen to me in the course of the conversation, I did say there's little or nothing we might be able to do. For those who are already on the process, for those who have started the process, we might not be able to do anything about them. But in all the conversations and the ideas that I put out there as options to consider in your own space, right? Number one, you need to be abreast of what's happening in your sector, in your organization, and around you. And what you need to do is to support your line manager, right? Support your line manager to, the job of HR today is not to manage people for line managers, but to equip line managers to manage their own people. So in whatever job description that you have or your KPIs, please always put your best foot forward such that you are supporting your own line manager, maybe the head of HR or HR manager. To number one, you need to keep a clean house. And I learned this in a very hard way. HR says that, oh, we must be strategic. We must understand the business and all that. But there are some fundamental things that we should be doing in terms of housekeeping as HR people that we must do and do very well. So it starts from you on your desk, your job, what you're doing, what you're expected to do it well. Somebody needs to go to where? To the hospital, HMO, and they are trying to reach HR over the weekend. They called all HR members of staff of HR. Nobody picked up the phone. How will that leave the employee? Right. Most of the issues around the contract between the employee and the organization, there are some things that relate to the organization doing something through some people. Some people in some instances, like I said, is HR. When it is time and they need to reach us, they just need a letter of introduction to open an account. I'm just giving an example, but HR is nowhere to be found. There is an issue within the business and they don't feel like they can open up to HR to have a conversation with them. We're not helping the individuals and we're not helping the organization. So Cowdy, back to the basics for you. I think is on your job, the things that you should do on a daily basis, don't be found wanting on it. And of course, if there are ideas based on things that you hear, based on your global research, based on your local research, work hand in hand with your line manager and constantly look for ways to make sure that the employee experience in your organization is top-notch. But don't forget what I said. You need, as HR department, not to manage people for line managers, but to equip line managers to manage their people and give them the right employee experience. Yes, Amaka, please go ahead. Amaka, your hand is raised. Please go ahead. Unmute yourself and go ahead, please. Amaka,
unmute yourself. I think she's lowered her hand. I can't see her hand.
Yeah, he or she has 2 devices.
Okay.
But that's the only one. That's the one. I can't see the other hand. I think that's the last one.
Okay, my hand is actually up.
I also have a question, even though my hand is not up. So, Pius, please go ahead. Why I take my last.
Okay, so good evening, everyone. Good evening, Mr. Fashion.
Good evening, sir.
Sir, is quite an opportunity and a privilege to have heard from the guru's mouth this evening because you know, I admire you from afar, and incidentally as well, I'm also your connection on LinkedIn. So I want to say this session couldn't have been handled by any other person other than you. So I want to say thank you so much. Just a quick question. I'm a line manager. I'm a line manager, and I want to ask my question in line with references you made about employees' engagement, right? Because the MD or the CEO will not be on ground at all time to come and do this engagement. The onions fall on the line managers. Now, you also mentioned that we should listen to employees when they bring up issues relating to maybe their welfare, their compensation and all of that. You will agree with me that maybe for every one employee that spoke up, that came up to say that, okay, I don't think I'm well remunerated and all of that, there are probably 5 others who are not ready to speak. All right?
Sure. Yep.
So because we have different individual personality traits, there are those who are ready to speak up. There are those who would just want to keep to themselves until they take the decision they want to take. So how do you get into people to be able to
get to the little things that actually give them concern as it regards the organization when they are not ready to speak? How do you bring them out of their shell to ensure that they open up, they engage you, or they interact with you, so that you can, those things you cannot study, those non-verbal communication you cannot get from them directly, you could get them to speak up, and so you could know where to tackle those issues from. So how do you get them out to interact with them, sir?
Okay, so this is what I think. Piles, right?
Yes, sir.
This is what I think. Something is fundamentally wrong if in my team, as a manager or as a leader, I have individuals who can't open up to me. Something is wrong. Something is wrong with my leadership style. I wouldn't say, oh, it's the personality style of the individual and all that. It is the responsibility of the line manager to close whatever communication gaps exist between him or her and the team members or associates. It is the line manager who gives the enabling environment for different personalities to thrive and open up in the team. So I have managed extroverts and I've managed introverts. The line manager shouldn't think that, oh, this is who I am, and therefore people should be able to relate with me based on who I am. No. It is your responsibility as Pius to relate with an introvert different from the way you relate with an extrovert. That's the reason why I call managers. And let me tell you, I don't spare people when it comes to leadership issues. And if you listen to me, or you know that I don't spare. No, it is our responsibility. You see, when a gap exists between those who lead and those who lead us, the leader has the responsibility primarily to make sure that gap is reduced. And that is emotional intelligence. And that is also, from a team management perspective, that is political intelligence. How you manage them on a daily basis, your leadership interaction and leadership transaction on a daily basis will let the extrovert easily tell you what's wrong, even in the open while everybody is talking, or the introvert to knock on your door and have a conversation with you. If you don't create that enabling environment as a leader of the team, then it's not going to happen. So back to you as a leader. That responsibility comes back to you as a leader. You've got to make it happen. Leadership is a burden. I've said this over and over. Leadership is a burden. It is not in the title that we are called managers and all that. It is not in achieving results for the organization anymore. Leadership is in achieving results for the organization through the people you lead. If you therefore can't lead people effectively, then you are going to have many quiet quitters and those who don't talk in the team. When people who work with us resign as line managers and we are the last to know, that is feedback to us. We should be the first to know. We should identify quiet quitters in our teams. The organization shouldn't be calling us and say, we don't think that person is engaged in your team. Something is wrong with our own leadership style. We are not connecting enough. We are not engaging enough. So I'm throwing the responsibilities back to you as a line manager to say, engage more, connect more, lead more by being there in the moment for your people. Once they see that connection, it becomes easier for them to open up to you. And if they still don't open up to you, create the right environment to make sure that you call them and find out what's going on. But it's a lot of responsibility on the line manager.
Thank you very much, sir. That was quite explanatory. Thank you.
Thank you, Pius. Thanks a lot.
Mr. Yemi, sir, a bit of what I wanted to ask has been tilted towards the question Pius asked. So I think you've been able to respond to me.
Thank you.
I would ask, just keep this in, how do you manage a polluted culture?
How do you manage what?
A polluted culture.
Polluted culture. Okay, so go back to the fundamentals. What made it polluted? That's it. So it's not going to be a one size fits all out of the bag approach and say this is how to do it. Back to a diagnosis. You've got to do the right culture diagnosis of the environment and find out what's going on.
Okay.
And one of the things I have found out is that when we say the culture is polluted, let us find out what leadership is doing. The analogy I've always given between leadership and culture is, if I'm a leader and I look at the mirror, what I should see in the mirror is culture, because I am the carrier of the culture of the organization. So when you say culture is polluted, I'm almost tempted to say that in many of such organizations, leadership is polluted. That's the reality. So leadership will need to find a way to tell itself the truth about the environment. Leadership is what we allow. Leadership is what we say it's okay. Leadership is what we reward. Leadership is culture. Basically, culture is leadership. I'm sure you can all see me very well now because I have two ring lights in the room where I'm having this conversation. If I switch one off, which I've just done, I'm sure you still see me. If I don't change it or put it on or change the bulb or do something about it, we will get used to the mean that you're now seeing. And it's okay. If we all say it's okay, then it's okay. But if I change it quickly because something has dimmed the light of culture and I bring it back, then we are very conscious of culture. But if 6 lights are in the room and 2 lights go off and we don't change it, oh, we're saying, but we can still see. The 4-bulb room becomes the culture of the organization. So back to leadership. What is leadership doing? Leadership needs to have a frank conversation with itself when the culture is polluted. Because most often than not, culture is what is cascaded up downwardly from leaders into the organization. So like I said, a diagnosis is really needed. We need to go through a design thinking approach. So when you want to create a new culture or a new employee experience, start from the employees. Start talking to them. What's working, what's not working, what should we stop doing, what should we start doing, what should we continue doing? But the conversation must be from the employee perspective. Let's not fix a polluted culture because of what we think as HR or because of what we think as leaders in the organization. Let us go back to the floor, to the shop floor, and find out what exactly, why is the culture like this? What can we do better? You'll be amazed what you can get from that. And once you have a laundry list of the things that you have, you can bucket them into different 4 or 5 boxes maximum, and you don't have to achieve. Again, you've got to set a journey. I always look at things leadership, things employee experience, things talent management from a long-term perspective. Once you start doing 1, 2, 3, don't expect results. But the point is this: leadership itself must be the game changer for a polluted culture. If leadership is not running with it, believe me, it will not succeed. It will not.
Okay. So sorry, I don't know if anyone has any other question, but I have one more. Please, can you shed more light, just a little bit? You don't have to take too long in responding to it. Sorry for that. How do you manage an organization who uses perception and sentimental metrics?
How do you manage as what? As HR, as a head of the business, as an employee?
As an employee.
Plan your exit. You wanted a short answer, right? Plan your exit. Okay. If that's the way the organization is managed, and the organization is not ready to change such a culture, and if the culture is fully entrenched, believe me, I wouldn't advise anybody to stay in that. I'm just being frank. Plan your exit. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying Monday morning get in or Tuesday morning get in and drop a letter of resignation, but I'm saying plan your exit. But if you're also a line manager, if you're managing other people, you may not be able to control the weather on the streets, but control the temperature in your own room. Let the narratives about how you manage your own people be different from how the entire organization is managed. Perhaps if your narrative changes, then it might affect or impact the entire organization.
Okay. I think that gives, even though we're trying to mitigate Japa, but it looks like Japa had to come as a rescue or bailing the cat in that scenario. But sanity first, actually.
Absolutely.
before that thing comes.
Absolutely.
We indeed enjoyed this session. I'm sure, I'm speaking for myself on behalf of others, I'm sure they did enjoy this session too. We appreciate your time. We appreciate your dissecting of every segment. We appreciate every advice and every keywords you've used to broaden our knowledge and expand this scope of profession that we are. We appreciate everything. We look forward to doing more of this with you. And I don't know if my MD has a word or two to say before we call this a night one evening. Hello, sir. Okay, so maybe he's engrossed with something. I'm sure he can hear us. So on behalf of everyone, I'd say thank you very much. And Bode is going to say something.
I just wanted to chip in since Mr. Adewale is not available to talk. I just want to say thank you so much, Mr. Yemi, for honoring. So, like, when we wanted to come up with this, and we came up with your name, and I was like, let me just try and send the message. I hope you will answer me within a month. And you called me immediately. It wasn't up to 5 minutes to send my message. And we all know how busy you can be. So we just want to say a very big thank you for honoring us tonight. We appreciate it a whole lot, and we're not going to forget this in a hurry. My take home from all you said is if you cannot control the weather, you should be able to control the temperature of your room. Thank you so much. I'm not going to forget that. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
I think I also have a famous quote from Oga Fashewu this night. He says, any organization who does not contribute quality to the talent pool does not have any right to also take quality from that talent pool. I think that is a take home for me tonight. Thank you very much, Oga Fash.
Thank you very much. Thanks a lot.
Yeah.
Thanks.
In addition to what Bode said, the day you called him back, Bode was intimidating everybody in the room. So you might want to ask for a personal gift from him. I'm sure he can hear me and he will present it. And it has to be pricey, sir. So, and again, I'm openly saying, I don't know if this will be granted. You already earned another mentee, and I'm going to disturb you because I'm trying to. Yeah, that's so fine. The rest of this will be done on other platforms. I'm sure you know what I mean.
Yeah. All right, that's fine. That's
so
okay.
On behalf of everyone, we'll call it a night. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, everyone. Enjoy your evening. Have a great weekend. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thanks very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Good night, sir.
Good night, sir.
Good night, everyone. Thank you. Great weekend ahead. Thank God it's almost Monday.
Motivational Monday.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Tega.
Thank you, Bode.
Good night.
Good night.
All right. Thank you. We'll talk. Thank you, Mr. Dixon. Thank you, Favor. Amaka, thank you. Bye, everyone.